Everyone, welcome to this evening's council meeting. If you haven't already, please silence your cell phones. City of Anamosa City Council Agenda, regular session Monday, August 26, 2024, 6 p.m. Anamosa Library and Learning Center. 1.0 roll call.
Here. 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 Here.
We'll just take a TV time out here to make sure the audio is good for Kay.
Hey Smith, are you here?
Yes.
All right, we can hear. So there are 4 council members present in chambers, 1 council member remotely. It will take 3 favorable votes to pass any motions this evening. 2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God.
With several individuals being in attendance this evening's meeting, just want to recap what the procedure or process is. So at the time of the motion or the agenda item, I'll read it. Council can make a motion or just engage in discussion. After I feel they have ceased their discussion, I'll open it up to the public for comments. At that time, please come to the podium, state your name and your resident of address, and you will have time to voice your concerns. 3.0 consent agenda, review and approve. I will read the 3 items listed. Council can make a motion that includes consent, which at that time will bring it up for all 3 items for a vote, or they can make a motion with any of the individual items. Item A, minutes from August 12, 2024, regular session. Item B, current bills. Item C, liquor licenses.
Move to approve consent agenda. Second.
Consent motion by Brooke, second by Todd. Now council can take the liberty to discuss any of the items. Public, do you have any comment on any of the items? Penny, would you please conduct a roll vote?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Hey Smith?
Yes.
Motion to approve consent carried. 4.0 public hearings, none. 5.0 proclamations, none. 6.0 postponed items. 6.1 resolution 2024-40 approving the plans and specifications, authorizing the bid letting, and setting the date for the public hearing for the flow equalization improvement project.
This was postponed from our last meeting. I believe there might have been some questions from the council, and I've relayed that to Snyder Engineering. I believe they can answer any questions if you have any specifics.
Your representative site.
Nick Eisenbacher, Snyder Associates.
I'd have a couple, Nick. See, there's going to be a screen replacement.
That's correct.
What's wrong with the current screen we have?
So it was a couple years ago now, Steve's had issues with the current screen keeping up, issues with the floats. I don't know if you want to go into more details.
Yeah, floats, flow, the bottom of the screen keeps wearing through. The controls, it kicks out all the time. So it's time to replace it. It's been a headache and a pain in the butt. It's time for it to go down the road. What's that screen gonna cost us?
Well, I believe the equipment itself was around $80,000. We currently have it estimated at 200,000 for installation and removal of the existing screen.
Is it a like screen, I guess? I'd have to ask. Lakeside,
It is a lakeside screen. It's slightly different than what you currently have. Or no, I'm sorry. We're replacing the lakeside with a Parkson. At least that's what the design is around. It's going to have a different set of flow controls, replace the current controls and pretty much the entire system. Should be no modifications to the channel. So it's just a matter of getting the old one out and the new one in, placing electrical and control setup.
and then I guess another question I'd have is the control building. Can you explain that a little bit to me?
Yeah, so it's just a small little building next to the flow equalization pumps. It's specifically for the VFDs, the controls for the flow EQ system itself.
What do you figure that's gonna cost, do you know?
With controls, it's around $100,000. That also includes all the electrical inside of it, VFDs.
I didn't figure it would be a good idea to just put the VFDs that are gonna control the stormwater pumps, basically is what they're gonna be. Is for when we have the surge, just to put that in a metal box sitting outside in the elements. It'd be better to just put it under a little building that you can kind of control the environment better than just being in the great outdoors. Because I'm sure those VFDs are gonna be expensive. Well, let me ask this. We have controls on our lift stations. They're out in the weather. Right? They are, but they don't have VFDs in them. But don't they make an enclosure that's weatherproof for VFDs? It is to a point. It'll keep the rain out, but it won't control the temperatures. I mean, it does have a little bitty baby heater in it, but then it's a metal box sitting outside that you're gonna bake it. We have enough problems with the VFDs and the Headworks building up until this point because the Headworks building is not have AC in it and they keep kicking out because it gets not like today. I'm sure it's probably 105 degrees in that room. Was there anything, I guess, added to this project that we absolutely don't have to do, Steve? I feel to cut some costs is what I'm asking. I feel that this is the one thing that was listed in there. I believe it was part of the original design was to replace the influent pump, but I've already had to do some of that due to pump failure and VFD failure. So we've taken that out, but everything else I feel is where it needs to be with really no frills. You didn't happen to get any quotes for rebuilding that old screen, did you? No, I did not. The biggest problem I've been having is trying to get people to help me support to work on the controls. Okay, thank you.
I don't have the plans in front of me, but I do remember seeing in regard to the screens to talk about special screens or what is so special about these screens?
The
I don't know what word was in
the
report.
So the screen that we're going to replace is the one that's inside the Headworks that was built at the plant in 2010 or some, around that time frame. what it does is gets all the larger debris out of the plant. So it's a spiral, it's an inclined spiral screen. And so there's basically a sieve that sits in the channel, catches the large debris, and then as the water level rises, that's what triggers the screen to manual or automatically start up. It then cleans that screen, that sieve off, and then compacts it and then puts in a dumpster for these guys to remove. And that way it keeps everything, all that large debris out of the Aramont plant. So it saves on maintenance costs down the road. So you don't have to pump the plant out, remove all that at a later date.
What is the cost of that versus, I guess, like the next tier down? Or
I guess I'm a little confused at what you refer to as special screen because it's pretty standard screen setup. It's changing slightly from what the existing setup is, just because it's a different manufacturer and it's an updated model. So, the existing screen's at like a 45 degrees, where this one's at 35 degrees. So there's just a few adjustments that we're making, but some of that is due to we're now using a brand new screen. They've made improvements to it. So there's just a few adjustments we're making there, but
can you refresh my memory? What's the total cost of this project?
so the last construction cost EOPC was $4.275 million. That did include the pumps that Steve talked about that have been replaced since we put this cost estimate together. So that, that's currently around $72,000 that won't be included in this project.
So puts us 4.344.
For basically 4.2.
4.2.
Yep.
The construction materials, what are they going to consist of?
The tank itself is a pre-stressed concrete tank, which is a change from when the project really originally started. We did do a epoxy coated steel tank. Of course, we started this project in 2018. Submitted the report June of 2020. So just as the pandemic kind of hit, as we were working with the city to get additional funding, of course, inflation skyrocketed prices. So around fall of 21, we kind of started looking at other options because steel prices skyrocketed and really wasn't a whole lot of cost difference between the pre-stressed concrete and the steel tank at that point. And it was, less than just around $100,000, where the pre-stress was more. But on the maintenance side of things, there's virtually nothing outside of just washing the concrete tank down every so often. Whereas a steel tank, you have to repaint it every 15 years, and then both the inside and the outside. So you definitely have a drastic difference in O&M costs to around $1.5 million over the life of the tanks.
So I'm kind of new to this whole project. You said that the consideration to move to this particular tank and setup started back in 2018. So maybe not to this particular tank at that time because there was still a consideration of steel tank, but when I drive past the plant every day, what will I see from the outside that has changed by doing this? Will I see any visible?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's 100. So the tank itself is 3 million gallons. So it's 110 feet in diameter and 45 feet tall.
So I thought that was the answer. So the building that I currently see right now that we're using, is that going to go out of existence altogether? Okay.
No.
Do you know where the old substation used to sit down there?
Yeah.
To the west of the brush pile. It's
Okay.
going to sit right there, and they're just going to be piping. So when we get the rain event, when the wet well reaches a certain level that the plant can't, the plant only takes so much. The manhole will fill up. They're going to cut a hole in that manhole. It will then run into another pumping station, which will pump it into the tank. You won't really see much difference there. And then once it pumps it into the tank, it'll just gravity feed out when we open the valve. into the sanitary sewer that exists, and then it'll recycle back into the plant, so to speak.
So the current tank that we're using now, it's not gonna be used for anything.
We don't have this tank.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just to back up a little bit, Steve, just refresh my memory, but we have a pretty good I&I problem in our system.
Yep.
And when this all came about, 2018, 17, we were pretty actively going after I&I in our system. We're doing manhole rehab, slip lining along the creeks, all that good stuff. But if I recall, we just couldn't get ahead of it fast enough because we kept bypassing the plant. Would that be a fair statement?
I would say so, yes.
So the only option we really ever had, if our town's going to keep growing, is to do this tank. Remember that wording, Rich? So we're kind of backed in the corner because we are going to continue to bypass. We're going to continue, hopefully, to build houses in this town. But the one thing that people have to understand, this tank is not the total answer. You have to also go after your system, because that tank is based on an insurance policy for the city. So if we do get a 4-inch rain, that will take the load for the plant until that flow goes down. But we still have to look at spending money on our system. That's just the bottom line, cold hard fact.
I don't know if our engineer can answer this, but and maybe it's not the right time to ask it, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. $4.2 million is what we're gonna be looking at, or maybe a little bit more currently. What are the financing and funding options for this? I know that there's some grant money, maybe for $500,000 or something that we've got. So that lowers it. Let's just generously say it's 4.2 million. That brings us down to 3.7 that the city itself isn't responsible for. But then I think we have to take out some loans, which create some other downstream issues, other places in our budget. I guess my concern is I don't disagree with Dan's position that this is an insurance policy and we need to do some other things to maintain or improve the system that exists. But at some point, the spigot for water and the spigot for money gets turned off, because I don't know where we're going to get the money without. I think our citizens need to be aware that there's going to be some costs that are going to have to be borne here by the city. And I just want to make sure for our reference, what we're talking about that we have to commit to as a city for the expense, or where that money's coming from.
So right now you guys are on the SRF IUP for an SRF wastewater line. So that's where we had planned to basically make up the rest of, take out the 500,000 that's CDBG, the grant money, and then use SRF to fund the rest of it.
But
how that affects the finances would be a better question for like a financial advisor, which SRF does help pay for.
And I understand that that's a loan. So it's not a grant that we benefit from, that we don't have to necessarily pay back out of city funds. But the SRF loan is a loan that we're going to have to pay back. And I'm not just trying to wrap my head around where we're going to come up with that over time. So thank you.
That's valid, but on the flip side of that, and Dan, I know every time that those manhole covers blew off and excess was coming out, you had to file a report with the DNR.
Absolutely.
And
Good.
they were pushing for us to do this, because at some point, I'm sure they're going to say enough's enough and start fining us if we don't do something. So then we've got the flip side of having to deal with the DNR and fines.
And I understand, I agree that something has to be done. I'm not trying to put the negative attitude here. I just am, you know, $4 million is not a small sum, and it's got to come from someplace. And as long as the public is aware that, yeah, we kind of are in a position where we're either going to be paying a fine at some point, or we're going to be continually trying to patch a screen that doesn't do what it's supposed to or doesn't perform the way it's supposed to. And sometimes we don't have a lot of choice in what we have to spend. And I'm aware of, I mean, I think everybody around the table and most of the people in the room here are aware that we started the year talking about controlling a budget and making sure that we're trying to make sure that we're not spending unnecessarily. So I just wanted to make sure I understood what the commitment was that we'd be talking.
I do have a question. You said that there were two different style of holding tanks. And there's $100,000, I think, cost differential between the two.
Yep.
What's the life expectancy of each style of tank?
Concrete tank is pretty much as long as you maintain it, keep it clean. I mean, I've seen tanks last 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I mean, there's tanks in the ground, a few wastewater plants still in operation that are 80 plus years old. So life expectancy is pretty large on those. Steel tank would just be dependent on how your O&M, how you maintain it. Like I said, they recommend you repaint those every 15 years. So, you know, it can be 45, 50, 60 years on those as well. But the costs on that is, you know, just a quick cost was like 1.5, $1.6 million just to repaint those tanks over 45 years.
So long term, even though spending maybe an extra 100,000, long term, it's a better solution.
Yes, absolutely. You'll pay for the new concrete tank will pay for itself after a few years just by not having to save to repaint it.
Okay. And I believe when we first talked about this project, if I can recall, it was like 2.3 million. How many years ago, Rich?
Well, I know, like they said, you started this in 18. I don't know when we got to the point of actually looking at places to put it, because originally that substation was not available. It was going to go someplace else.
If I remember, we ended up buying it. I think we paid 15,000 for that site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the reasoning on that was we didn't want to pump all that wastewater from the back of the plant to the front of the plant. That was our best option for cost to the city. Is that right? Be right, Nick?
Yeah, so we originally looked at putting it behind the trickling filter for the back part of the plant. We had some soil borings done and realized that was not a good option based on the subsurface conditions. It was going to cost a significant amount to basically make that area viable. At the same time, whoever owned the substation, I think it was ITC, was looking to sell it. So the city worked to buy it, and it's, much more suitable soils there. So,
And I know that didn't go through until basically about the end of Beth's tenure.
Yeah, there were some issues, I think, with the legal or something on it.
Yeah.
Do we have any big projects coming up after this, Jeremiah, that we don't necessarily have to do right away?
I mean, we didn't include a lot in this annual budget. Are you talking just for the remainder of this year, or are we looking
for the next 4 years?
I guess probably clarify, define big. I mean, I don't think so. Steve and I have talked internally. We understand that this is kind of the biggest one that we got going right now, and nothing that's going to rival this for the foreseeable future.
Well, honestly, I feel that we don't have a choice. If Anamosa wants to continue to expand and grow. And I'm also thinking about any future business that would come in here and possibly use water for a process, for manufacturing, whatever. I personally done a lot of thinking about this project, and I feel that we have to do this.
I agree. I don't think we got an option not to do it.
What sounds to me, Dan, that you're throwing your support behind this. Can I take that as you're making a motion to approve the plans and to set the date for a public hearing?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Can the public hearing convene next time we meet? Or do you need a longer time frame? The next meeting? There's a motion by Dan, second, plans and specs, to set the public hearing for our next council meeting.
Yeah, it's
23rd.
yeah.
Excuse me. The meeting
September 9.
Is there any other council discussion? Is there any public comment? Benny, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Yes.
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 Penny, I can't hear you, but my answer is yes.
Is that all council? Council members, Benny? Motion to approve carried. 6.2, thanks, Dick, for being present and to answer our questions. 6.2, discussion of possible action, Dillon Military Bridge Technical Memo, HR Green.
I do just want to preface this agenda item. So it's under postpone for obvious reasons. You will see this again in a later agenda item on the project status updates, but we can get this discussed now. I would also just say the discussion possible action portion. My intent is to send this technical memo to Jones County. So I don't know. I guess I'm looking for some direction, but I don't know that we can technically take any action at this point until we involve Jones County and make them aware of the technical memo that we've received. I did want the council to have this though. Kind of been waiting anxiously for it, and I hope everybody's had a chance to kind of read through it. And Melissa's here if you have any questions regarding this memo.
Good evening, Melissa Clow with HR Green. As Jeremiah said, I'm simply here at this time to answer any questions that you would have on the technical memo that was provided.
Well, one question I have just looking at this overall is if we would go with option A, what kind of a time frame would that take to complete the project?
That I would have to ask our bridge engineers for the rehabilitation timeline. I know that they have told me that they could have plans prepared to begin next spring. I believe it would take all of next summer, but I can verify that with them and let Jeremiah know.
Okay. And I'm assuming then option B1 and B2 could be done completed quicker.
Yes, they could be completed quicker.
Okay.
Has any of this memo been made available to at the county level?
It has not yet.
Yeah.
No.
And is this the memo that was developed, I guess, after the,
After the inspection.
right, but I can't remember timeline wise whether this was before our supervisors meeting in which they declined to participate, at least initially, in some of this. Did this memo, is this already in the process before that particular meeting?
No, it was not. This memo is the result of that inspection, the initial or preliminary bridge inspection from Majeski and Masters. So I think I believe the date of that supervisors meeting, Majeski and Masters was in that week to do their preliminary bridge inspection, and then after that concluded, this memo was produced after the fact.
And up to this point, we've not had a particular agreement with moving forward then, is that correct?
Yes, and that's currently accurate.
That's really the purpose of this memo, is to summarize the costs and the different options that would be available for city council to
Sure, and unfortunately, the
review.
theme of the meeting tonight for me is going to be, and perhaps it's because of my profession, but I'm going to look at things as worst case scenario, hoping for best case scenario. And clearly there is a 300% difference between one option and other options. And not that I don't want something to happen good with that bridge, but again, we're stewards of the pocketbook here, and just trying to figure out how we're going to make the pennies add up. So I appreciate you being here to kind of walk us through this if we need it, but I think it's a fairly detailed report, and I think we've got some consideration to try to meet varying different interests, but we also have to be aware of the financial constraints too.
I don't know if this is an option, but I've been giving some thought on our current bridge that crosses the river. Is there any way you could add on the side of that bridge and make a pedestrian walkway to that structure?
There would have to be a better analysis of that bridge to look at it structurally to know if it would allow for that.
Has Green ever done a project like that? You know of?
I believe we have. So I know of a project just like that going on in Cedar Rapids right now, across the Cedar River. So I know it is possible, but
As I'm looking at it, we already have the structure crossing the river. And it does connect back to the park. Just thinking out loud here. And maybe give us some options. Doesn't help the old bridge.
I guess in reference to options, just to take it from there, my intent, regardless of tonight's discussion, was to make this available to Jones County. I did provide Whitney over there with the report from Majeski when we received that. So they do have a copy of that. I was going to do the same with this and just continue to extend the request that if they had any suggestions or input or other objections to let me know. I don't have a timetable on that. I just was going to provide it to them and give them an opportunity to at least review it, decide when or how they wanted to, or if they wanted to put it on their agenda for discussion, and then kind of follow up at a point in the future.
Well, I think you are right in giving it to them and proceeding that way. But I think at some point, instead of giving them the option of putting on the agenda, we need to request that it goes on the agenda.
We definitely need to have both parties sitting with one another to come up with some type of agreeable path. And no decision can be made here tonight because we need that support or we need direction that they're in or out.
And what they're thinking, but I'm afraid that if we just leave it up to them to put it on their agenda, they may delay. That's why we need to request that it goes on.
I understand that. I think this is also a hot button topic for them. And they'll only delay so long and then they will have to put on their agenda even without our request, but we can certainly make that before time.
Well, I mean, this is, to me, and I think Todd has said this too, that this is really a project that is of the essence. It is not one that can be delayed too long. So we need to keep pushing.
And we were, as part of our packet, I think, provided with another option that to me seems not one that's particularly worth a whole lot of time on, because the proposed or the thought leaves us 17 feet short of hitting the shoreline. So I'm not really sure that that does us any particular good as an option.
But what would you like from this then?
Again, this is more to make the council aware, but if you, I was going to provide it to Jones County, give them, however much time the council believes is ample for them to review it. If you want to propose a date that I follow up, I can do that, or if, just kind of want to throw it out there.
Is September 23rd, the second meeting in September for us?
Yeah.
I guess I would like to have, I want it back on our agenda on the 23rd, just so that it doesn't fall through the cracks. And I don't think that it should take, I don't think that it should take that long for anybody to be able to review it and discuss it amongst themselves. So I would like at least an update by September 23rd's meeting about what, if anything, we've heard from our counterparts.
I mean, I would say because I'm guessing you're planning on giving this to them tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'd say if we haven't heard anything by the second week in September, then we should ask for it to be on their agenda for the third week of September.
And then on our agenda for the fourth week, so that we can move forward somehow.
So we at least have an indication maybe of what they're thinking when we meet in September to discuss it.
Yeah, I can do that. I will provide this to Jones County tomorrow. Uh, Paraphrase essentially all that, and make it aware that we're hoping to have an update at our next council meeting and kind of keep it moving.
Thank you.
As this is a agenda item that says discussion, I'll ask if the public has any comment, knowing that there will be no action taken. And we are waiting for our counterpart, the other governor and body to back with decision.
Tom Durgan, downtown property owner. Obviously, we all know how I feel about this once again. As a lifelong resident and the people that have been here forever, this is a pretty critical piece of history. And at one of the last, a few meetings ago with the supervisor, there's somebody there I was hoping to be here tonight that knows a lot about this stuff. This is a historical landmark. Something we all know. But they made it pretty clear that you just can't tear this down. There's hoops to jump through. That being said, Todd, in a way, you're right. And it says here 310%. However, if you look at the packet, table 1, and like I said before, is it worth someone getting killed on this new bridge? And if there's a walkway put across that new bridge, before I get into this, who owns that bridge? Is it city, county, or state? Does anybody know?
The roadway.
Yes.
Well, I was looking at it at Beacon today, and city limits goes up to about midpoint, and then it's county.
Okay. So there again, we're going to be into something with a bridge with the county, right? If we put something there now, the 310%. Yeah, I personally don't really see that, because if you look at option B1 620, even B2 410, but then if you look at an estimated cost to put another bridge across, there is 1 million. So, okay, we're at 1.6. So let's just call it, I'm going to round everything to like 1.7, 1.5, and 2. If the way I see it, if you guys go down the road of B1 or B2, the cheaper option, and the county might just tell you to go take a hike anyway. But if you do 1, it's more money that you guys are getting. Because if you do the B1 and B2 and then you put that new bridge across there, which you're going to have a bridge, and I don't know, I haven't checked with the DNR, but you're probably still going to have to do something with the abutments. Is option B1 and B2 really the cheapest one? And I don't know about you guys, but after the way the county has been, I would not want to tie myself into another deal with them, because we've seen what they've done. We've seen, in my opinion, how they run. You have a supervisor member that was on this trail committee that's denying repairing and doing anything with it. So that being said, and I know this is just a conversation tonight, but I would suggest and highly recommend that maybe look at these numbers a little bit different, because, and like I said before a few meetings ago, you got to put that other bridge in your future, because someone is going to get hurt or killed on that bridge. So there's got to be a walkway, something across there. And while I'm here, I'm still working on, because that deck on that other bridge is bad. And I've been in contact, and I'm trying to get that bridge closed until it's repaired, because that Hale Bridge is bad. And from what I understand, that's the state's. So if that one gets closed, there's a trail that's going to a parking lot and back into town. That's it. We need to get these bridges, even that one, they all need to be fixed. One way or another, there has to be something across this river over here that is not tied with the county, and not letting people come across that bridge, because I'm telling you, something's going to happen. Because if people fly down that hill, and I told you guys before, I went home one night and they're out there with chairs, coolers, and fishing off over the bridge with cars coming down that hill. So hopefully you guys will look at these numbers a little bit better and kind of put the numbers, and I do agree, Ty, you got to be a steward of the money, but you know, like I said, history's history. Everybody tears everything down, you never get it back. So please look at these numbers again.
Hey, Tom, while you're here, I know you've put in a lot of time on this.
Yep.
Have you looked out at any possible grant money or anything to try to help on this project?
I might as well go beat my head against the wall because I wouldn't know the first step to take.
Okay.
I have no idea. I've talked to several people. Becky might know. I've talked to several people. And they say the money's out there, but I have no idea.
Well, alternative money sources are always helpful.
Now, okay, so back on this, I reached out to 3 companies on this bridge. One didn't get back to me, don't surprise me, but 2 did, and they were willing to help. Now we'll back up here a second. So on this, where it's on my phone, I think, the pricing, like the decking, and there's stuff on here. We were talking about a little bit ago. There's stuff that I know a good group of people can do, and like I'm gonna use like the decking, because someone else was in here at one of these meetings and said that's a $300,000 deck. Well, I just totally disagreed with him, but Dan pointed this out to me a long time ago, and I since went down there to Keosauqua Events. Over the Des Moines River is a bridge that this one's brand new compared to that bridge. It's horrible. But what they did, and this would be a perfect example to cut the decking into a third of the cost, is they went right down the center 5 feet and put rails on it, and everything is open. So right there you cut the decking into a third of the cost. There's a lot of stuff I think with a good group of people that we can do, and if I can get these 2 people to still stay on board with their equipment, I really think we can cut the cost of this. My opinion, my thoughts. So.
Good evening. I'm Becky Dirks Hogstead. I am at 305 North Huber Street here in Anamosa. I'm just an interested citizen in a lot of our history, as you will know, as many of you may know. I guess my take that I want to send out to the city council is that I personally believe you don't have to do this alone. We have a Jones County Historical Preservation Commission or board, whatever you want to call it. They were instrumental when Rose Rohr was in charge of it in saving the Hale Bridge. I would like to think some members of that board or that commission are still available and still doing things actively. I know they're active right now trying to save the Stone Bridge, the Ely Stone Bridge. But it wouldn't hurt to contact them and say that question you just had. Where are the grants? Where's the money? Because they would be the ones that would know. That's why we have a Jones County Historical Preservation Board. Ask them what they know and how they know how to do it. Unfortunately, Rose Rohr has left us. And a lot of the information on Hale Bridge happened even to the point of moving it with, National Guard assets, is lost. And I don't know, except other than maybe with the county or the Historical Preservation Society, that they could find that information out, or through newspaper accounts. I would be happy at any time to help try to research any information you need. I would hope it did not address like where it was going to be relocated if they took it off the river. But I would hope that if that event occurred, that there would be some funding set aside to do kiosks such as is in that area now, that explain the history of the bridge and, just the information for people, because people like that kind of information. I don't know how much also that you have to work with the state because of that being the state park on the other end of it. So that's really all I have. Built in 1887, it is basically one of its kind left. That's what we have. We have a treasure that, to all of us locals, that is the signal that, hey, you're in Anamosa, you are home. And to lose it, I think would be very sad. And it would really hurt the feelings of many of our citizens. So, and I know these things don't happen overnight. The Hale Bridge project was a 5 to 10 year project. I forgive me that my memory is that foggy, but I know when I worked at the local access channel, we videotaped many of the processes of it. And I do believe I have some of that information. I'd be willing to give any information I have or any information I can research and help provide to the city council at any time. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
One more thing, and she has been awesome at finding some stuff on this bridge. And I think another good resource besides the group you're talking about is Mike and the REIT. And I think Jeremiah's been in touch with them a few times down at the archaeology building downtown. They've have found quite a bit of stuff on it too. So anyway, thank you.
So one quick question or comment. Do you know if HR Green ever looks into grant money for something like this?
Yes, we do. So, and that was something I've discussed with Jeremiah. Once we know what direction we want to go, we can start putting those feelers out. We have contacts at the State Historical Society, and we can start asking those.
Would there be a way to ask those questions? Again,
Sooner than later.
sooner than later, and I want to be clear, my comments are not meant to suggest that I'm not interested in preserving that bridge. What I'm interested in is if the city has to take on the entire cost. We just voted on the Flow EQ project that's going to be $4.2 million roughly. And I'm a little bit of a pessimist in this regard that we have had we've had occasion to have a discussion with our counterparts, and so far that has been less than fruitful. So in an effort to keep this on our agenda and our hot button issues, I guess what I would say is if HR Green has the capacity to reach out to these different grant sources, I would say let's see what the most accessible grants are, so that if we end up having to pay for the whole thing, we know that we can get up to $500,000 for this, or we know that we can only get $250,000, because I'll be a whole lot more comfortable discussing a wider ranging project that Mr. Durgan is talking about. But today I'm a little reluctant to just pull the trigger, assuming that we might get some assistance from some other entity. Right now, the only entity that seems to be interested in doing anything is sitting right in this room. And until we get a little bit more commitment or firm answer that we aren't going to get a commitment, I have to assume that we're going to be talking at some point about funding the whole project. And that's the information I want. If we get someone else that has rainy day money and they want to help us with it, great, I'm all for that. But this thing, I've only been on the council for 8 months, and this thing has apparently been the subject of discussion for approximately 32 months, because the original agreement that has been the subject of all this is a 2-year agreement. And so I just think that to get the information I'm going to want to look at for, Jeremiah had mentioned with Mr. Smith's question about, are there any other upcoming big budget things. You start talking about $1 million, that's big budget. And so I just want to be sure that we have, I guess, worst case scenario planning from my team.
Well, I think it would be nice making these decisions, which option can become easier if it is known of funding availability. But it's hard to solicit those without scope. And we don't know what that is until both entities can sit down and come to some understanding and agreement. I would ask it at best that these could run parallel to one another until we do reach common ground on what is going to be done.
Yep. I can talk to our bridge group about looking at funding opportunities they've utilized before. Then we do have local contacts that I can reach out to and also start having those discussions with to see what's out there. And that would be for both the rehabilitation and relocation and a new bridge.
I'm going to continue to be optimistic that city and county will come to mutual understanding. Thanks, Melissa. 7.0, council action item. 7.1, project status update, HR Green.
All right, I'm back. Melissa Clow with HR Green. I will run through our projects briefly, and then if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. 3rd Street sidewalk. We made a presentation at the last meeting regarding the 4-lane to 3-lane conversion. Our estimated cost to provide educational materials about the conversion and how it works to improve roadway efficiency, as well as look at the school queuing issues and provide a public meeting is estimated at $9,500. I am going to be working on our estimate for the final design for this project, and we will have those costs hopefully at the next meeting to discuss so that we could start working on it. We have the funding available, and I believe the city wants to see it happen sooner than later. The sidewalk program continues to be on hold. We do have some thoughts going forward on that, but it depends on if we want to look at the city as a whole, if we want to look at certain portions of the city to use as an example, or how to move forward and provide a comprehensive plan to fairly improve the sidewalk program here. The Well 7 siting study continues to be on hold. We're waiting for direction from city staff. Water treatment plant disinfection. We have had that project moving forward. The chemical containment coating system materials have been ordered, but they're delayed. So late August was the estimate for when these will be installed. So hopefully soon. Final startup will occur when the paint system's complete. Sewer in the alley between Ford and North Huber. It's my understanding the city is actively working on obtaining the easements that are necessary for this project. From HR Green's standpoint, we are ready to put it out to bid and start construction as soon as that occurs. The city GIS continues as noted here. And then we just discussed the Dillon Military Bridge. So are there any questions?
How are we coming on those easements?
Slowly but surely would be my best way to describe it. So I do have our utility billing clerk working on making contact with each of the individual property owners. We found a number of situations occurring, but essentially a good portion of them were not aware that they needed to re-sign the easement agreements after signing the round. We had to update those, of course, to change dates. So we've been trying to work with those. They're not what I would consider holdouts by definition. And that's just been slow. We have some that have come in or trickled in over the last several weeks. Others saying that they want to, but haven't come in yet. Trying to figure out how to get those people to meet up with us or vice versa so we can get signatures and keep moving.
So are we 70%, 50%? What do you guess?
I would say pretty close to 70%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got, again, the majority of them have indicated that they are inclined to sign. It's just trying to get everybody's schedule to coordinate and get them in to sign and pick up checks and keep things moving.
Well, if it would help, maybe there's some way we could set up a time after hours and meet them at their house and get it done.
Yeah, and that has been part of what Madison is doing is I've asked her to go through the list, just make contact, determine what the status is, and if we need to make other arrangements. There's already been employees expressed that we would do what we need to do to make that happen.
Okay.
So those were some of the same open items. Essential last council meeting, we gave the update airline. Anything we can do to advance that. We can get that problem. Underground, off the ground, I guess. Also have any other questions for Melissa on those projects? Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
7.2, Resolution 2024-44, setting the date for the public hearing to approve the rezoning request of the Northland subdivision and the final plat of the Northland subdivision second edition.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for September 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
I'll second.
Motion by Rich, second by Dan. Also discussion.
Is this the one we were talking about? The streets, maybe making them wider? Is this so that the emergency vehicles could get through there?
No, that's
No.
the Cuba.
Cuba's.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's correct.
This is behind the dental office. Thank you, by the way.
Commercial
Okay.
park area. Other side. I did clarify with Benny prior to the meeting, as I was confused with the rezoning request. He informed me that when this was brought into the city, was annexed, it was zoned agriculture, and this request is to take it to the residential. I guess my concern was that it was rezoning after it had been zoned. One of the other questions I guess I would have is the final plat. I did not see a copy of that in the packet. Is there any updates or revisions from preliminary?
No revisions. We were waiting on some final documentation from Yeah, the attorney, I think their attorney that is required as part of the approval of that plat, as far as the actual technical or specifications of it, there were no changes.
Well, then would the motion tonight, other than set the public hearing, be to approve the final plat?
That will be all part of that at the public hearing.
Oh, and at the public hearing?
Yeah,
Not- not-
yes,
so we
correct.
Wouldn't be approving the plat tonight. Okay.
No, yep, you're right.
Why I'm struggling with that.
Yeah,
I had the same struggle.
this is just to set that meeting, and then we will have two separate items approving the rezoning and approving the final plat.
Thanks.
Yep.
Is there any public comment on the motion? Penny, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Albert,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Kay Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 7.3, discussion and possible action. Vacant property registry, ECOG proposal and ordinance 953, 12/13/21.
I threw this in the packet tonight. The last time I believe this was formally discussed, or at least to any great length, was back in 2021. Ordinance number 953 was what was approved by the council at that time to enact this vacant property / building registration. Just kind of as a brief update or reminder on that, that was fairly significantly dependent on the CSO position, which is vacant, and we probably do not or don't have any plans to look at that for the foreseeable future. So essentially what that left was some problems with the enforcement of the boots on the ground aspect of this ordinance. And at that time, ECOG, who helped draft this, or was part of drafting this in the first place, they didn't really have a solution at that time. I just had mentioned it to ECOG earlier in this, I believe it was late last year, or earlier this year. They said they now have a possible solution. So I've included the ordinance that was passed, as well as ECOG's proposal to help kind of with the enforcement and or notification side of things. I requested that Lynch Dallas review both the ordinance. As everybody understands, I think things change, case law and whatever. Wanted them to review the ordinance, make sure we were still on solid legal ground for that, as well as ECOG's proposal. The attorney said they would absolutely review it for us, but before we paid to have that happen, just wanted to make sure that the council was okay with proceeding as is. Essentially cited, for example, the city of Marion, who is currently fairly inundated with this process, just due to non-compliance issues. So those are costing time and money to the city of Marion, and they've got an entire department that's devoted to this. So he just, again, wanted to verify that we're okay with proceeding. We're willing to take on that sort of commitment that could potentially be costly in time and resources before we even looked at this. I guess with that, I'll leave it up to everybody else. I am at the point where I'm ready to have Lynch Dallas look at this, make sure we're still good and want to proceed. But if it's not the direction the council wants to go, I would be open.
Would a lot of the items in this code be covered by nuisance properties?
None of them would be covered by nuisance properties. So this is entirely what it says is just vacant property registry. You could have some vacant properties that are also nuisance properties. Those would be separate though. So you'd have to have dilapidation. Um, Chief, if you have, I think essentially dilapidation issues.
So I don't know. I'm just going to use this as an example. We're talking vacant buildings, so vacant homes need to be registered. Even though grandma might be in the care center and it takes a year to go through her things, that's going to be required as a vacant building.
I believe we're looking at commercial structures, but I would have to review it to see if it specifies otherwise.
At one time, it included residential too.
Yeah, and that's the other, I guess the other reason I wanted Lynch Dallas to review this, because I'm not sure where other cities are going with that or how that's fared for them. I know the primary push, excuse me, the primary push was for commercial properties primarily. And if I recall, I think a lot of it was just, again, trying to spur the businesses to get businesses in to buildings that are not being used as such.
For the purposes of this discussion, are rental houses considered commercial or residential?
I mean,
Could you repeat that, Kay?
I'll try. I don't have a very good voice. Are houses that are rented as a business considered commercial or homes?
I believe they'd be considered residential, but I would have to verify that.
Well, so what was provided in the packet was the ECOG's Anamosa vacant building inspection proposal. And this talks about the initial phase anyway, talks about walking the business district to assess or to look at vacant ground level downtown buildings. And then it goes on to describe commercial or industrial buildings would be considered vacant if they're not occupied or they're not having a lawful business out of it. So at least as I read this particular proposal at this point, that sounds to me like they're not considering vacant houses that exist off of Main Street.
Yeah, I want to verify that that's accurate. That's how I'm interpreting it also, just under the ordinance 953, section 3. Now, granted, these are just definitions, but it is defining vacant, and it does say a commercial or industrial building. So that's, I guess, what I want to clarify, but it does seem to be specifically geared towards commercial or industrial buildings, not necessarily residential.
And to piggyback on to what Kay and I think Rich a little bit too, I would want to have a little bit more information from our city attorney about whether houses that are rented for purposes of rental properties would be considered commercial.
Well, and I'm just kind of going through here quick, and I know I'm probably missing something out of it again, but this one item says the owner of a building or house kept vacant shall require or otherwise maintain general liability insurance in the amount not less than $300,000 for buildings designed primarily for use as residential units, including buildings containing no more than 4 dwelling units, and not less than 1 million for any other building. So this ordinance does cover residential property, the way I'm reading just that one section. And I guess my question is, this ordinance was put in place in 2021. It's now 2024. Have we had a problem?
Again, I think that depends on the intent of the ordinance.
I mean, we haven't applied the ordinance,
That's why we don't have any problem.
but have we had a problem that requires the ordinance?
Yeah. That's where I think the intent of the ordinance matters. I would look for the definition of problem. If the problem is vacant businesses or vacant commercial structures that have been sitting vacant for a period of time and are not contributing to economic development, then I do think we have a problem. We do have downtown buildings that are vacant, not bringing in revenue. But to what degree, that I don't know. And do you define those as a problem? We have some other outliers, buildings. I think they're in the process. Some of them are in the process of being sold or transitioned to do something with. Do those, constitute a problem or not? So again, I think the intent of what this was intended to do matters. To me, I think that's at the crux of it as well. I would certainly hate to embark on something where we're putting a lot of time and effort, resources into going to court to talk about non-compliance issues, if at the end of the day, we're not really fixing what it may be a problem in the first place, or what might not be a problem in the first place.
Well, I know the intention of this ordinance or this policy was to bring these vacant downtown buildings online with a viable revenue. I think we can all be in agreement that that should be one of the objectives. The enforcement, how and the who is, we'd be exhausting resources that we really don't have in comparison to Marion, and they're struggling to take. It sounds like they're struggling to get this across the finish.
Well, and I'm wondering if we're just talking about empty storefronts downtown, instead of charging all these fees for that process, maybe we ought to be trying to work with the chamber and economic development and so forth to try to fill those locations, have work with the property owner and try to get those storefronts filled. But I find that after looking at this and reading it again, I'm at a point where I'd like to see this thing almost go away and we start something else, because for 3 years, this hasn't done anything. And having an ordinance that we're not doing anything with is a waste of time.
I'm with you. I think this is a waste of time. Well, there's lots of ordinances in this town. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
This is just another one.
And I think there's a lot of them we need to take a look at. And like you said, not just this one.
And I would concur with that. I think that's ultimately why I wanted to get this out there, because this is an ordinance that has been sitting on the books. It's partially a pet peeve of mine. I mean, I think everyone here is aware of that. We either need to do something with it or get rid of it, one of the two, because I don't think it's appropriate that it's sitting there and we're technically not doing anything with it. But it depends on who you ask. I know the city of Des Moines, they do have something similar to this. They love it. They say it's great for them. we're talking about two very different demographics.
Right.
So, you know,
Way draft a hybrid of this. I'm in agreement with Rich is go away. I just don't know. I don't know if I would be in agreement. All of it 100% go away. There's some bones here that I think could be advantageous to as a measure or leverage to bring these buildings online and have occupancy.
So I just want to understand. We've got the proposal from ESCOG versus the ordinance. And I just want to make sure I understand what's going on here. Sounds to me like there's a suggestion that we get rid of the ordinance, but is that to then be replaced by the ESCOG or something entirely different?
Well,
And I'm okay with getting rid of the ordinance, but
yeah, to me, I would rather see us, if what we're focusing on is commercial businesses that are sitting empty, working with the property owner, working with chamber, working with whoever to try to get a business into that location. I would think that would be more beneficial than being kind of a negative hammer of, hey, you owe us $600 every year for this or that, and you need to do this. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't even going to, like in the last 3 years, have not even come in to, hey, my business is vacant. Here's my $600 for my 1 year inspection or whatever it's going to be. I think maybe if we try the other approach, we might be a little more successful. I don't know. And then if the building is in definite need of repair, that might fall under some kind of a building code violation or something that then we have some teeth on that portion of it.
That's going to be the significant part. Where can you put your teeth into it to advance?
and we then have to make sure we've got someone going out that is enforcing the building code as well, because historically, I think we've had some issues recently, but not too far in the distant past where there's just not been any follow-up. We say this house is, or this place needs to be something done with it, and then it just doesn't ever quite make it to the next step. So
I guess I would only ask, does the council think that the ordinance needs to be changed so much, aside from the bones of it, that it would be worth getting it on the upcoming agendas to repeal this entire ordinance, and then we start fresh with a different idea or a different direction? Or would there be another suggestion? Do we need to start trying to just look at the framework we have and make changes to that? I can do either one and start getting a hold of the proper people to make those happen. I guess I'm just kind of looking for an idea of what everybody thinks, if we should just really scrap it and go a different direction, or again, keeping in mind that we've not done anything to this point, so I don't know that we're out one way or the other.
I think it should be scrapped. It's not been enforced. Nothing's happened with it. So we don't have a person to check up on it.
I guess if it's not benefiting us as a community, why do we have it? And I don't think we should have it, honestly.
So I'm hearing you two, you're looking to dissolve the ordinance and place or pursue nothing additional.
Nothing's happened with it, so
like I said, I'd like to look at a different approach.
I would agree with that statement. I think we need to do something, but this might not be the answer for us.
Right. So I'd just soon do away with this. And then we need to sit down, whether we do it as a council or if you guys do it at the administrative level, but come up with a plan of how we can work with those business owners that we know the properties are empty and see what we can do to help them fill those storefronts or businesses, whatever they've got.
they may not want it filled though.
They may not.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying scrap it. It's sometimes they don't want it filled and they bought it for a reason and it's not to have, maybe they don't want a business in there.
The only thing I would like to see at some point though is if it is an empty storefront and they're really not maintaining the building, the inside, if we can at least have an agreement to have a structural engineer or somebody go in and look at the building periodically to make sure it's not going to cave in. Because you never know what the business next door has done in maybe a remodel or something that might have caused some structural damage to a wall. But other than that, we're talking about somebody's private property. Got a little problem with being too heavy-handed as a city.
Do we know how many of the properties are locally owned and how many are owned from people out of state?
I don't have a number on that, Kay. I can only talk from experience that is certainly a aspect of this. Just when I was performing the duties over there at the police department, we do run into those. They're not taking care of their buildings. They're not even doing stuff as simple as removing the ice, snow and ice accumulation. And we don't have a contact for them. They're out of state. But I can't not tell you the percentage or the number of those.
Well, if we're talking just downtown, I think a majority of those businesses are locally owned.
Again, I don't have a number on that, but and we are talking about two. I mean, this is vacant property that was nuisance, but there was a good handful that were either out of town or out of state. Yeah.
One time there was several absentee owners to down that may have changed with first phase of the CDBG revitalization. I think in conversation with Derek that he said that can take up to 3 years to transition those non-viable storefronts to occupied. That's what some of the statistics have shown. Beginning to sneak up on that, but so far there's been a very good job done in some of those storefront buildings getting viable occupants and a revenue stream. That's not the measuring stick, but it should certainly be an objective. So are you looking to have a motion to bring this, as Rich said, or do we just put it on the agenda?
If the council is willing to, I guess for this, I'd like a motion to bring it back and we'll get that repeal started. And so I'll just bring it back next meeting and we'll start that process.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Is that you, Dan?
Yep.
Motion by Rich, second by Dan. Move forward with the agenda. solution. Any other council comment? Tom? Just keep in mind, all this is to
Yep,
bring
I
it
know.
back to
I know.
council for discussion.
Yep, of course. I'm gonna agree with them guys and I want to see this repealed. Once again, I have not taken a penny of taxpayers or state money to do my buildings. I'm up the street pouring my everything into a building just up the street. We all know what I'm talking about and the shape it was in. Obviously, I own several buildings downtown. And other people that own these buildings that are still sitting, you want them to pay when they're not getting a dime and they're sticking, in my case, sticking every penny of my personal money in these buildings. And you want me to pay you. And I said it before, and somebody up here mentioned it about a legal battle. I would rather take my money and stick it in my building than be in court with Anamosa. I mentioned at the very first CBDG, I think, I asked if the city was going to have, and you just mentioned it, I asked if the city was going to have, at the building owner's expense, have a engineer go through the building and see if the building was structurally sound, to see if it was worth sticking the money in the facade. I know what I've done to my buildings. I know how I do things. And there's buildings downtown. And the answer was, I believe, the CBDG was going to take care of that. I don't think CBDG or the state has done anything other than the front. And the program's been changed and changed and changed. But anyway, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair to ask people to pay when they're struggling businesses downtown anyway and struggling property owners. And I do not want to get into court now. I have not taken a dime from you guys. I put my money into it. I've said this a million times. I'm going to keep telling you. It's not right. Thank you.
The city could also look at it as it's not right to have storefront buildings without occupancy.
People don't want to rent, Rob. They don't want to rent. And that's.
Penny, would you
Tom,
conduct a roll
one-
call, please?
Yes, Weimer,
Aye.
Weimer. sorry,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Galbert, Dan Smith.
Yes.
Kay Smith,
Yes.
yes, I heard a yes.
Very faint.
Is that all of them, Penny?
Yes,
Motion to approve carried. 7.4, review and approve tree removal RFQ in the amount of $23,450 from the streets department. Would you come forward, please?
Good evening, Shane Morrell, Streets Department. This year we have 22 trees that need to come down. They're either dead or getting ready to fall down. I sent out 3 bid quotes, contacted these people for their bid quotes, and then only received 1 bid quote. I had sent them the sheet that I had here with 22 trees on it, explained that we marked them with white paint, wanted them to go around and see what it would cost to take all 22 down. No stumps. That's just getting the tree on the ground. We'll deal with the stumps next year. But these trees are dead. And some of them have been dead for 3 years now. And we're just now getting to them. So I got 1 bid back and it was for $23,450. And the other 2 did not. They said they were going to, and I gave them a deadline and it surpassed the deadline. And so I brought it to Jeremiah's attention because I don't want to be taking trees down in October.
Shane, does this include the streets department doing a lot of the hauling of the branches like you've
Yeah.
done in the past?
Yeah, we set it up that way. We set it up that way that we would haul all the wood and haul it away and clean up the site. We've saved money in the past by doing that. That's how we have it set up this year too.
Thank you.
When you take all these trees down, so we don't have a repeat of prior, make sure the property owners at these addresses are informed
Mhm.
and that we may have to get onto their property to complete this project. So
Yep.
they're not surprised.
Yes, and I've talked to quite a few of them already, and we'll be in contact with them for a doorpost. Because of the amount of trees, on South Garnerville alone, there's 6 trees. And so 4 of them are, or 5 of them are in 1 or 2 neighbors, and they're talking already. So, and they've also known that we're coming, hopefully because of the white marks on the trees. There's big white X's, you can't miss it. They're in front of they're in front of the sidewalks.
So Shane, did you take local bids or do you go out any further than?
So I went to Central City, to a Hennick and talked to him and left a message, and then we played phone tag. So I sent him the sheet that I have right here and tried to get back a hold of him, and then he didn't respond. Well, his response was, "We'll get to it." And then I did Cy, and I also did Tim. And I got a thumbs up from Cy, and then I got nothing. I got 2 thumbs up, but then I got nothing. So I figured a bid's a bid, and here we are.
Well, I'll make a motion to accept T&D Tree Service, Tim Deeker.
Second.
You, Brooke? Motion by Rich, second by Brooke. Further council discussion? Any public comment? Any, please?
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Gumbert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 7.5, review and approve change order for Martin Garner Architecture in the amount of negative $4,801.72 decrease for phase 2 downtown revitalization project.
Second.
Motion by Brooke, second by Rich. Council discussion. Just for clarification, this is a credit incense. Any public comment? Any?
Crump,
Yes.
Gumbert, Dan Smith,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 7.6, review and approve change order for Martin Garner Architecture in the amount of $0, no change, for phase 2 downtown revitalization project.
Second.
Motion by Brooke, second by Rich. Council discussion. Public comment. Any, please?
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Gumbert, Crump,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. Derek, thanks for whatever you did to get us $0 in credit. Hopefully we can continue with that. 7.7, review and approve consent agenda pay request totaling $36,255.73. There are 3 items here. If council makes a motion that includes consent, it will bring all 3 up for a vote. Otherwise, council can make a motion on any of the individual items. Item A, from Peak Construction in the amount of $34,318.23 for Phase 2 Downtown Revitalization Project. Item B, from HR Green in the amount of $1,500 for the Water Treatment Plant Disinfection Systems CPS project. Item C, from HR Green in the amount of $437.50 for the Ford and Huber Street Alley Sewer project.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Rich, second by Brooke. Council discussion on any of the items? Public comment? Any?
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Gumbert,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kay Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 8.0 City Administrators Report.
I just have two quick things. Just want to remind everybody, Labor Day is coming up. So City Hall will be shut down that day. We'll have a 3-day weekend. Hope everybody has a safe and good holiday for that. Also, just not to go backwards, but on HR Greens, project status update, one of the last items was the City Hall map. Just wanted to let the council know, and please let your constituents know as well. We're currently trying to work at getting a large project map in City Hall with a area that we can start documenting and tracking internal projects, external projects, everything else. Try to keep ahead of some of these things and not only let the public know better and more accurately what's going on, to help us keep track of everything as well. We do have a lot of projects that are constantly going on, and oftentimes we get people call and ask what's happening here, what's happening there, and we have to do a little digging. We want to try to make that more efficient. So we are working with the GIS department, although technically it's not a GIS issue. They're going to get us a big map as kind of a central hub for the office to just get more project management going on down there.
That's a great idea.
Is that something you could put on the website?
I think we probably could figure out a way. Yeah. Yeah. I know we've tried to get some of those excavation permits and things like that, but you do have to go through a few links to get there. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
There's some way we can streamline it.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I do have another question for you.
Yes.
When you brought up Labor Day next week, do you guys have a calendar of like all your scheduled holidays? Because maybe you don't follow the state holiday or the federal holiday or whatever. Do you have a calendar that shows what days you actually follow? Because I don't know if we've ever sat down and discussed that.
I believe it's on the website under our hours, but I'll look.
Okay.
But I'm fairly certain it's on our website.
Because like I said, I don't know if we've ever discussed following this holiday, that holiday, or not.
That's a good point. We probably put it on the calendar where we can input days as well,
Right,
days off. I don't know. I'm
It's
still
outlined.
used to Chief Whirling's job, so I show up on days I'm not supposed to be there. And
Yeah, they're definitely set out in our personnel policy, but I'm not sure. I think they're on our website, but I'll check.
Okay.
Questions or comments for Jeremiah? Thanks for that. 9.0 Mayor and Council reports. 9.1 Mayor's report. Just to, as an FYI, the Arts Corps is having a city event at their location on Sunday, this coming Sunday of Labor Day weekend. Their location is the old Rockwell building, street dance and other outdoor activities. You are available, stop down, foster a sense of community. Also, Jeremiah, the date for Derek can also mention, help me here, for the getting an idea of what could take place of the old hospital. When is that day?
Just the fourth. Just Wednesday.
What, next week, Wednesday?
Oh, darn.
I know this is not an agenda item, but we'll let it fall underneath the mayor's report. Just inform
Sure.
publicly what that is.
So some of you may recall that we've been working with ECIA for brownfields work, and one of the buildings that was chosen was the old hospital here in Anamosa, determined what might be a feasible path forward for it. One of the things we're doing that is a planning meeting. We did some focus groups earlier this summer, and now we're having a public meeting on Wednesday, September 4th from 3:30 to 5:30. It'll be over at the Lawrence Center. For anyone from the public, welcome to come and attend. If you have ideas what the building could be, if you want to see some of the ideas that were mentioned, if something else you wanted to just talk about and see what might be possible, that's what we're going to do that night to see as that planning process what we might be able to do moving into the future.
Thanks for summarizing that on my behalf. That's all I have. 9.2 council reports.
I would just mention that on September 19th at 11:30, the Anamosa City Council is having a lunch and learn opportunity about small business options in the community. The Small Business Administration presentation from Samantha Kitch will be there at 11:30, and you're supposed to take your lunch and there's free bars and a drink maybe. So given that we want people downtown, maybe we ought to go to the small business meeting and find out what's what.
What location, Kay?
Chamber office.
Thank you. Thanks for that report. Any others? 10.0, public comment for items not on the agenda.
Tom Durgan, downtown property owner. I apologize quick for starting to lose my patience, but I'm very passionate about what I believe in. And you're right, Rod. The city does deserve to have the buildings filled. Once again, I've lived here, I've seen what this town can be. I know what this town can be. I would like it to be that because it was very successful at one time. I know personally, unless a business owner flat out lies, the company I brought from Cedar Rapids to this town that has been huge. Now, somebody up here touched on it. Economic development, Derek, and the chamber, I think is pretty crucial for them to get involved and try to bring stuff here. I constantly am on the hunt. I constantly bother people, and I'm not even a chamber member, and I'm not even economic development. But I'm always on the look to bring someone in here to fill buildings. Believe me, I'm always on the hunt to fill this town. Because this is I've lived here. This is our town. And I work hard at trying to make things decent of what I do. And yes, you're right, it should be full, and I hope it becomes full. Thank you.
Anyone else? 11.0 adjournment. Meeting adjourned. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be in attendance.